What's up, everybody? It's Voice of G here for another episode of Voice Talks, and I can't start off the show without giving a big shout out to my guys at Plug Talk Sports. Follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we do put out articles as well on plugtalksports.blogspot.com, so definitely check that out. Islam Makhachev, Charles Oliveira in the lightweight division was really all the talk, all the commotion leading up to UFC 280. I really do believe that Islam did have a lot of home cooking in Abu Dhabi. You could hear before the fight, during the fight, and after the fight, the crowd was on fire for him, cheering him on. And all credit to him. He faced one of the most dangerous submission artists in mixed martial arts history of all time in Charles "The Bronx" Oliveira, a guy that could hit you with nasty elbows even though he's still on his back, hit you with a triangle choke or a guillotine. I mean, we've seen him do that against other guys in the lightweight division, beat guys like Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. I mean, these guys are not rookies, they're veterans, and he dominated all of those guys, and of course was the lightweight champion leading up to this fight. And here comes Islam in the striking. I mean, he was unmatched. He was unbelievable on the striking. Really kept Charles Oliveira on edge. Really didn't commit too hard to be the first guy to throw a punch, but he was ready to counter at any moment. Dangerous leg kicks, great punches. And then, of course, we all know what happened in the second round where we saw Charles Oliveira get dropped. He threw a flying knee, which I don't know, maybe he got a little too overconfident. He did have the size advantage. He did have the length advantage there with a longer reach against a guy like a 5'10" Islam Makhachev. So he throws out a flying knee, and Islam makes him pay. Hits him with a nice hook to the cheek, and knocks him right down, and then it was all over from there. And then you have Charles Oliveira, who's so great on his back, and like I said before, I think he got too overconfident in his he was drinking his own Kool-Aid per se, and got way too overconfident on his back, and was like, you know what, this guy, he's just coming into this division. I'm the champ. I've been so good on my back. Why not try it again? And you know what? Islam stayed tight, nice elbows in, but then every now and then he would come outside and hit him with some nice ground and pound. And Islam Makhachev just continues to rise to the occasion. I mean, that was one of the first sentences of the article that I just came out with for Plug Talk. It was his night. It was his night, and Charles "The Bronx" Oliveira is not going anywhere. I could see him fighting possibly a Beneil, some of the other guys in that division. I don't see him fighting Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier. He needs some fresh blood, and I think Beneil is that guy who had a great win against Gamrot earlier in the card. I think that would be a great matchup for both guys trying to get back into the title fight. And then for Islam Makhachev, he will be facing the number one pound for pound guy in the world, which is the great Alexander Volkanovski, who is the champion in the featherweight division, and he's really dominated that division. So you're gonna be able to see two guys go at it, two champions go at it, and only one will leave with two belts. And of course, that is always something in mixed martial arts, especially in the UFC, that is always coveted. A fighter who has two belts. I mean, Conor McGregor's there, Daniel Cormier is there. Only a handful of fighters have reached two belts ever. And Alexander the Great Volkanovski will be facing Islam Makhachev to do that. And my prediction is I think he will. So let's go ahead and go to the rest of the card here. Next, a very controversial fight, or controversial ending, in Sugar Sean O'Malley beating Peter Yan, who is the former champ in that division. And I had to rewatch the fight a couple times, and even after watching all of the highlights, all of YouTube's glorious highlights, I still couldn't tell who won. You had a guy in Peter Yan who was taking his opponent down various times throughout the fight, hitting nice clean combos, and mixing it up with leg kicks. And then you had a guy like Sugar Sean O'Malley who had great movement on the ground, and even though he was taken down a couple times in the fight and even knocked down a couple times in the fight, he was still able to give hard punches, didn't take a lot of damage on the ground either. And then in the end of the day, the judges favored Sugar Sean O'Malley, and now he becomes the #1 contender in that division. And it's going to be really difficult to see, Peter Yan lose like that. And the rumor is that he's even willing to leave the UFC because he's so upset about the results. And I don't know what his future holds. I mean, if the guy himself is saying, I don't know if I want to be here anymore, I can't give you guys a prediction of what he's going to do next, because it's really, the ball is in his court, and only he can say what he wants to do from now on. As for Sugar Sean O'Malley, though, the UFC is obviously way behind him. The money is way behind him, just supporting him at this point. The pay-per-views are going to be through the roof for whatever happens with him, whether he fights a guy like Marlon Chito Vera, who he lost to. This kid is 16-1. He's still very dangerous. But he lost to Marlon Chito Vera, and Vera is no rookie either. He's a seasoned guy who's looking to be a champion in that division. And so, Dana White obviously holds the cards, whether he gives Sugar Sean the keys to a title matchup against the current champion Aljamain Sterling, and we're going to get to his fight in just a moment. But I would like to see Sugar Sean O'Malley go again into a rematch against Peter Yan to really prove the doubters wrong and really solidify himself in the #1 spot, or fight the guy that beat him, the only guy that's beaten him in the UFC, and that's Marlon Chito Vera, who I think deserves at this point either a title shot or that #1 contender shot. And why not go against Sugar Sean O'Malley for that #1 spot. As for Aljamain Sterling, he fought TJ Dillashaw and he dominated that fight. TJ Dillashaw, veteran of the UFC, he has had some scandals with the steroids, the EPO as they call it, the steroids and all that good stuff. He had a long layoff, comes back into the game for a title shot against Aljamain Sterling. And not to say that he didn't deserve it, but he said that he had an injury after the fight. He had an injury during his training camp, and he still went into the fight. And like I said, not to say that he didn't deserve to be in that position, but if you're an athlete at any level and you have a serious injury like that, you have to question why is it that a guy would put himself in even more harm's way than he already is. If your shoulder, as an athlete, I've had various injuries, and one of them was a really bad shoulder injury where they had to pop my shoulder back in for a wrestling match in high school. But this guy is not in a wrestling match. This guy is in a life or death situation inside the cage. TJ Dillashaw, he's a veteran. I don't question his toughness, but you have to think, why would he put himself in that position to fight a champion who's probably in the best shape of his life? Aljamain Sterling pre-fight looked amazing. Looked like body goals out there before this fight. And he dominated and ended up winning with, a dominant performance. Ended up beating TJ Dillashaw, and solidified himself again as a champion and defending his crown, right? So we'll see what happens with that division. Again, the question still remains, is it Sugar Sean O'Malley? Is it Marlon Vera? There's a couple guys in that division. It's a stacked division in the bantamweight division. And the question remains, who will fight Aljamain Sterling next? And Henry, I'm screwing up his name. Henry Cejudo, another former veteran of the UFC, another double champ in the UFC, has said that he wants to come back to Perth, Australia, and I believe that's UFC 284, 282, I may be wrong about that, but he wants to come back and fight Aljamain Sterling for the title. And I don't think that happens, guys. This guy has been shouting from the sidelines, literally, or you know, from outside the cage, you could say, for a while now. A couple years now he's been out of the game, and to just walk into a title shot, I mean, you know, arguably you had Michael Chandler, you know, do that, but Michael Chandler was a champ in another division, or in another league, fighting league, before that. And, you know, he wasn't, you know, taking a break for years. Here you have Henry Cejudo, who I respect as a you know, as a Olympic champ in wrestling, but, you know, the guy's been talking his butt off on the sidelines for a couple years now. You're not gonna walk into a title shot like that. And I was actually watching Errol Hawani's show earlier today, the MMA Hour. Sugar Sean O'Malley was there, and Sugar Sean even said, like, is Henry Cejudo tight on money? Like, what is going on? No way that Aljamain Sterling decides to fight in the spring after just coming off this W against TJ Dillashaw. I could see Aljamain Sterling wanted to take a break. I mean, I don't blame him. If you're the champion, why would you want to risk another injury by fighting so much every 2-3 months, every 4 or 5 months? It doesn't make sense. So I could see other Sugar Sean O'Malley fighting Marlon Chito Vera. Whoever wins that fight, hey, send him packing to the next big thing, big UFC event in the summer, and have him, whoever that fighter is, face Aljamain Sterling for the bantamweight title. And man, that will be blockbuster regardless. So there you have it, guys. Another episode of Voice Talks, short and sweet, covering UFC 280. Check out the article on plugtalk.blogspot.com, and I'll see you guys next time.